Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Christian. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Hello, sacral beauties. Welcome to the She Sacral podcast, where we focus on burnout recovery through the power of sacred pleasure. And we've been diving into the 12 Stages of Burnout Series. And in this episode, we're going to move into stage 4. Now, we've covered how we start to prove ourselves, we work harder, we start neglecting our needs in the previous stages, but in this stage, we actually begin to numb ourselves and displacement of conflict. So we're going to dive into what all of that means, and I'll also share with you some common signs, how this affects your hormones and your nervous system, and then I'll even share some small little rituals that we do in our She Sacral community as well. So definitely stay tuned because we have a lot to dive into. So when we get to stage 4, this is when our unspoken needs have begun to build up, right? We've already started neglecting ourselves, and we start to have a lot of suppressed anger. And that can cause for our emotions to start leaking. We start to become disconnected energetically, numbing ourselves, and also creating even more hormonal chaos than we've already been through. And I think it's really important to cover this because we're going to start to reframe that anger that's burning within us and start utilizing that as guidance to restore that emotional honesty. I think anger is one of the most powerful emotions that we hold when used properly. Anger is definitely a fiery type of emotion. And so when we don't control it, when we don't master it, when we don't work with it in healthy ways, it can become so destructive to ourselves, to our relationships, and to our work. So when you've been holding on to these unspoken words and truths and everything you've tried to stuff down inside to try to get through everything that you're working towards in this stage of burnout, your body is actually going to try to start metabolizing that. So some common signs that you may be in this stage is that you might start snapping at your loved ones or people that you're really close to over really small things. You may start making passive-aggressive comments or have emotional withdrawal. You may start bottling things up until they explode or leak out in sarcasm. And I've covered a little bit about sarcasm in the expression code, where it is a little bit of that anger that we're holding on to. I know sometimes people don't think of sarcasm as being that deep, but it is a little touch of being passive aggressive when we are being very sarcastic with people, especially when it's on a regular basis. Like if we make a little sarcastic comment here and there, okay, but when that's someone's regular way of communicating, they're definitely suppressing a lot of anger, and that can be felt. But if you do start to communicate with a little sarcasm, that is okay. We are here to reset and realign ourselves as we move forward through these stages. There's no judgment. We all handle things the best way we can. All we could do is just gain that deeper awareness so we can start to shift our lives in the best way. You may also start fantasizing about disappearing or ghosting or just starting over. Just start a new life. All right, let me pack I don't even want to pack my bags. Let me just hop in the car and just drive until I run out of gas. If you have ever had one of those thoughts, you're definitely already in stage 4 of burnout. And yes, I have reached this stage as well. I have had so many thoughts of just being like, oh man, if I could just hop on a plane with just no agenda and just go and come back, maybe would be nice. Just start over because nothing is working right now. And also you may experience a lot of quick tears or being very reactive or experience emotional numbness. And so this is when we're getting to the space of not expressing the emotion, but we may start outsourcing it. And so if you want to learn more about how you can express your emotions, then definitely check out the expression codes as part of the Sacral Codes series. And it's going to give you a lot more information there. Now, the root cause of this stage is going to be when we consistently don't speak up or express our needs, and we displaced what is true for us. We kind of don't even really feel or believe or prioritize that what's true for us is important. All right, we've gotten used to putting ourselves on the back burner. And so the core, deeper wound associated with this root cause is if I share how I feel, I will cause conflict or I will be rejected. So if you have this fear of rocking the boat or, disrupting other people's peace, you're just trying to keep the peace for other people, but not for you, right? You may start to overfunction. And when you're overfunctioning, that's going to lead into resentment. And that resentment is going to run into internalized anger. And this is going to be really tricky because sometimes you cannot figure out the energy that you're holding on to. You can't figure out where that's coming from because mentally we've been displacing it. You may have misaligned expectations. You may start giving more than you're receiving. And that can just become your normal pattern. You may start to experience a disconnection from your personal truth, or you may actually start to betray your own self. You have all of the things that are important to you, the things that you have committed yourself towards, the things that you value in your life. You can start to betray those things, especially when it's tied to helping you feel more like yourself. Again, going back to keeping the peace, you may on the outside express, I'm just trying to keep the peace. I don't want to, disrupt anything. I'm just trying to get through what I'm getting through. And in that, we actually are experiencing conflict aversion, where we're just trying to really actually avoid conflict. And avoiding conflict never works. Because the things that are important that need to be addressed never get confronted. It teaches other people to either mistreat you, to give you more work, or to give more demands, or to make burnout even deeper. So we have to start to shift that energy to feel comfortable within ourselves to express those boundaries because it's so important. Now, I do have to give a little extra view here because while it's so easy for me to say, oh, just say how you feel, we all know there are certain people that you just can't do that with. We know that there are certain people that when you go to express yourself or you go to say, you know what, okay, let's battle. Okay, we're gonna go head to head here and we're gonna talk this out because this is creating a lot of chaos for me. There are certain people that when you try to do that with, their reactions are either very explosive, they're very confrontational back towards you. They may even become more abusive or violent. They may try to sabotage you. They may try to make your work life even harder. And so it can feel like you have more repercussions that are there for you just speaking up for yourself. And so that's why I really wanted to focus on building this community for us because we all kind of share some similar patterns when it comes to burnout and getting into these stages. So if you know that you need a little assistance with that, then definitely head over to the community. You can click the link down below after you finish this episode. And so once we understand that when we're avoiding conflict, it doesn't prevent the pain. It's going to delay it. We're going to experience it later and it's going to be even deeper. So it's so important that we learn how to handle conflict and how to shift the energy with people so they understand how to come to you correctly with certain things. And it doesn't matter the type of personality. Listen, I've worked with every kind of personality. There is a way to handle it. And I promise you, you don't have to lose yourself in the process. All right, so we've covered the common signs and we've covered a little bit more about the root cause, but I do want to dive in and talk to you about how this affects our hormonal and nervous system. When we're in this space, obviously throughout all these stages, you're going to recognize that our cortisol levels are going to continue to spike. But more so, I want to talk about how anger really affects our bodies. When we suppress those emotions and when we hold a lot of inner tension, anger is the number one emotion that drives that adrenaline and drives that cortisol, and that drastically impacts your liver. When I was going through my burnout recovery journey, I started to go to acupuncture and learn more about that. And that's where I really learned how much anger impacts the liver. So in traditional Chinese medicine, anger is the primary emotion that is stored in the liver. So when we have a lot of chronic, unexpressed anger, it does not just go away. It energetically and physically starts to stagnate the function of your liver. And so when anger is suppressed, the liver becomes energetically hot and leads to a lot of inflammation. Okay. And I know sometimes it's like energetically, like what? When you are very angry, this elevates and starts to increase the amount of cortisol and adrenaline in the body. And that is considered to be a toxin when it's being released so much, and that gets circulated back into the liver. When anger is repressed, meaning we've kind of been conditioned to not express anger and it's completely unconscious, this will slow down those detox pathways in your body, and that will create emotional congestion. So things just start to build up quite a bit. Your skin is also very reflective of what's going on the inside, and with your liver being that space of detox on top of the emotional congestion, that can also be manifested into the physical, like on your skin as well. So if you notice that your skin is breaking out a lot, particularly around the chin, jaw area, and your forehead area in between the eyes, that is definitely a sign that we're dealing with some congestion in the body. Now, if anger is very explosive or chronic, then this is going to, again, add more of those stress hormones that we have, like adrenaline and cortisol, which will recirculate back into the bloodstream and then overwhelm the liver for processing. Now, when your liver is overburdened, especially with an unprocessed emotion like anger and chronic stress in your body, estrogen gets recirculated as well, because your liver will process your hormones. So estrogen gets recirculated back into the body. This will lead into what's called estrogen dominance, which leads to weight gain and mood swings and anxiety and PMS and problems with fertility. It's just a whole thing, girl, a whole thing. Cortisol starts to build up. High cortisol will also block ovulation. When you're really, really stressed out, this is putting the body into survival mode. If you're in survival mode, the body is saying, well, we're trying to survive right now, so we don't need to reproduce. We need to preserve whatever we can to make sure that we're safe. So it's going to block out ovulation, which is also going to lower the progesterone, which keeps you nice and chill for the second half of your cycle. And this is also going to increase your belly fat. So if you notice that your hormones are just kind of all over the place, and you're also dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of anger in your life, this can absolutely be a contributor towards that. So we want to be really aware. I mean, burnout is something so serious, especially for women. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few clues that anger is actually impacting your liver. If you notice your rib cage is really tight, or the sides of your body are holding a lot of tension, if you notice a lot of tension in your eyes or blurry vision, if you have a lot of headaches, especially between the eyes and the temples, if you're dealing with a lot of hormonal acne, especially on the chin and your jawline, if you've been dealing with a lot of heavy or painful periods or breast tenderness, these are signs that your liver is being heavily impacted. Now, one of the best brands that I particularly have worked with and used on a regular basis, has become a staple for me, is the brand Ladywell. And there's so much with hormonal balance. I love the vanilla latte mix that they have, and I love the vitamins that they have. And I use those on a regular basis just to kind of help with bringing down the stress and making sure that my body has the nutrients that it needs, especially if I'm in a stressful space or I'm burned out and I'm depleting my nutrients. And so if that is, something that you're looking for, definitely click down below because I have a link that you can use just to get a little discount to help you save if you want to try it out and see how it works for your body. So we've covered a lot about how this is impacting us, but I want to talk a little bit more about emotionally. How are we feeling inside when we're in this stage? Things you might find yourself thinking or saying could be, I'm mad, but I don't know why. And one of the things that actually helped me was to be more creative, to express my emotions through art, not through trying to be perfect or anything, but to just get those emotions out into some type of a form. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check out the Creative Code in the Sacral Codes series. So I started to do that so I can visually and physically see what I was holding onto inside. And so if you're in that space, it's tough, but we have to take a moment to release that anger that we've been holding on to. Whether it's unmet expectations or frustration, or you're mad at yourself, or you're mad at other people, or things in life just have not gone the way that you expected, or things in life just seem unfair. You may also feel misunderstood, emotionally exhausted, or easily triggered. You may also feel shame for being too sensitive or feel like you're being too much. You may feel like you're mentally spinning and emotionally checked out, like your mind is all over the place. It's hard for you to even remember certain things, and you're just gone. Like emotionally, you just don't have any more energy to give. Your body is expressing a little bit of this emotion. You may start crying, you may, have some irritability, but you can't place it. You don't actually know where it's coming from or why you feel that way. So when I think about this, overall, you've just been holding on to everything for so long, and your body knows it. Your body wants to release it. Your body wants to let it go. But mentally, maybe we've created a pattern where we are not releasing it. So let's talk a little bit more about why stage 4 triggers burnout. 1, when we have chronic suppression of emotions, this will build a lot of tension in the body, and your nervous system will start to lose its capacity to regulate itself. Again, this happened to me. You're going to probably hear me say this a few times, but this happened to me when my thyroid started to not work as well. And that freaked me out. And I was not understanding that. I'm like, what the heck? I'm just in my 30s. Like, why is this happening? Like, what? I didn't even know this was a thing. I've always considered myself to be really healthy. Why is my body deteriorating right now? And I was just holding way too much in. When it comes to burnout, you have the thing that's burning you out. You have the stress, but you also have life. And I just don't feel like that's talked about right now. And then I got to say it, but when you're in a space of burnout, especially when you're an entrepreneur, there's already this feeling of failure, of shame, of not being good enough, of whatever it is, all of the above, right? If you have felt those things, you know what I'm talking about. And you know that when you see other people that appear to be succeeding, it can be so triggering. It feels like, what am I doing wrong? What is the problem? And when you see that, you don't give yourself the space to acknowledge yourself. You start punishing yourself, or you start saying, you know what? We just need to work harder. We need to do what they're doing. That becomes another trap. And then we do what they are doing, and it still doesn't work. Okay, we don't see behind the scenes what's going on. And so you kind of don't give yourself the opportunity to speak up, to say, hey, I'm actually really suffering right now. I'm suffering. I'm burnt out. I'm exhausted. I can't pay my bills. If I can pay my bills, I'm really scared that I'm not going to be able to pay them later. So I'm trying to work even harder right now. I'm seeing all these people talk about financial freedom. I'm making $50,000 a month and this and that and whatever. And it's driving me crazy. And so you have to be very committed to yourself to say, I'm going to do what's in my best interest. That was one of my biggest lessons that I learned. I started to go down that path. I'm like, hey, I want to get more views, or I want to be able to create things for people to buy, blah, blah, blah. And I started to lose my soul in that process. I just felt like I was a copy machine, to be honest. I didn't really feel like me was in it. And I was doing a lot of things right, and I was doing a lot of things wrong. But the number one thing I was doing wrong was not being my true self in what I was providing, because I didn't feel fulfilled. I'd get a listen, or I'd get maybe a subscriber, 10 subscribers, 50, 100, 1,000. But because I didn't feel like me, it didn't matter. And on top of that, I wasn't reaping the benefits because I wasn't able to magnetize the energy because I wasn't there. And so, yes, of course, we're going to make mistakes. We're learning. We're trying to do the best that we can. But if you can at least remain who you are and do what works for you, that's going to be really helpful. So if you don't want to be on every platform underneath the sun, if you are a content creator, or if you don't want to make certain things, but maybe you do it because you feel pressure that it's going to make you more money, don't do it. It will burn you out even faster because we don't have that level of enjoyment while we're doing it. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that's a thing where you have this level of pride, and then you want to reach out for help. You want to say that you're suffering. You want to even admit to yourself that things are not working, but you're constantly having something shoved in your face saying, I'm successful. I'm making this amount of money. I'm making this. I'm making that. And you just feel even lower about yourself. So if you've ever felt like that, leave a comment down below or just thumbs up. You don't even have to say anything. We don't have to even know who you are if you feel this way, but I need to know that someone else has experienced this. So definitely leave a thumbs up if you have gone through this. If you are on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, then just answer the poll down below. When we're not emotionally honest, this will accelerate the burnout. And so we want to reframe how we feel about anger. Anger is not the problem. It lets us know what our boundaries are, which is what I love about anger. So we're going to shift that energy and saying like, anger is bad. I shouldn't be angry. To expressing your truth is an act of devotion towards yourself, not destruction. So it is imperative that you speak your truth. All right, so now on to the good stuff, okay? I want to share with you some tips that we actually do in the She Sacral community that you can apply for you as well. And of course, there's so much more there, as well as 30 days of pleasure rituals that are so fun. I do it every month just to help me stay out of burnout. All right, so first I want to share with you some journal prompts that you can start to do for reflection that really helped me out quite a bit when I would feel so much anger and tension in my body. The first one is, where am I feeling unmet? Where are my needs not being taken care of? The next one is, what am I pretending not to feel? What am I pretending to not feel? What would I say if I felt safe to be honest? Have you ever seen the show Ally McBeal, or even Insecure with Issa Rae, where you have your thoughts inside and you are like, what I really want to say is bomb. Like you just want to go off on the person. You want to say probably some really harsh things, and they would probably be mortified to hear what you had to say to them, but you want to say it. I think you should write it all out in a letter, and you don't have to give it to them. You can read it out loud and you can burn it, but it needs to get out. And then also doing a weekly boundary check-in ritual. So just asking yourself who or what feels draining to you, what truth needs to be spoken kindly, but clearly and directly, and what sacred yes or no is being ignored. Those are some ways that we can start to check in with ourselves, because this stage is really important for us to tune in with what's going on the inside, so we don't continue to not only neglect our needs, our physical needs and our self-care, but we're really starting to abandon our emotions, which is going to run into deeper problems. So When you hold back your truth, your body will hold it for you. So it is time to let it all go. And you can absolutely do that, I promise. So this concludes our episode on stage 4. Up next, we're going to talk about stage 5, which is when we start to change our values. And that one's a big one because that's when we start to lose ourselves even more. So thank yourself so much for showing up today. And thank you for tuning in to the She Sacral podcast.